What's up everybody? For those of you that are new to my channel, my name is Luigi, a USC graduate and a current medical school applicant. And today we're going to be talking about 5 key tips that you need to know to get through the secondary application step of your medical school application. If you're a college student, a pre-med student, or an aspiring physician, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below so you can tune into all my videos and learn from all of my experiences going through undergrad and currently applying for medical school right now. So without further ado, let's go over the 5 main tips that helped me get through my secondary application stage of my medical school application. So the first tip that I have for you guys starts even before you get your first secondary application, and that's to basically do your research. Applying for medical school, you're not going to be the first one to have ever done this. You know, there's a lot of resources online, a lot of different websites. There's Med School Insiders, Med School Headquarters. You also have Savvy Pre-Med, Shemasian Academic Consulting. There's a lot of different websites that you can look at to see the questions that each medical school typically asks. Sometimes it changes from year to year, but most of the time they tend to keep a couple of questions the same. So it's good to have an idea of what kind of secondary questions each medical school will ask. So when you apply to them and you're expecting a secondary from them, you already have kind of a baseline or a structure for the secondary essay that you're going to type up. And luckily for you guys tuning into this video, I'll make sure to post down below in the description all of the different resources that I use to help me prepare for my medical school secondary application. So all of the different websites that I use to look up the questions that each medical school will ask, and also looking up tips and advice on how to basically answer the really common medical school secondary questions, such as how would you contribute to the diversity of this medical school, why would you choose blank medical school, and all of those other common questions that they ask. And again, just another warning, as informed as these websites are and as reputable as they are, sometimes the information that they give out isn't 100% accurate, because some schools, some medical schools tend to change up the secondary questions that they might ask. So just keep that in mind when you're preparing for your secondaries. So the second tip that I have for you guys is kind of an add-on to the first tip. Now that you've done your research, you have an idea of what questions the medical schools might ask. Now the next step is to basically start answering them. Make sure you have an idea of the word count or the character count. Some questions have different limits, but make sure you keep track of those and just start cranking it out. Start typing up your essay. And even though it might not be the question that the med schools will ultimately ask when you receive the secondaries, it's still good practice to start typing up what you're thinking when you're seeing these questions. And remember, this is your first time trying to answer these questions, so don't pressure yourself too much to get it perfect right away. The fact that you're doing the pre-write means that you haven't even gotten the actual secondary yet, which you could receive maybe 1 month or 2 months later on. So at that point, you'll have that much time to edit what you're typing up now and make it sound good, so that when the actual secondary does come, you're ready to hit that submit button almost at the same day. So tip number 3 is to find tools that you can use to prioritize the secondaries that you're going to get. Not all of your secondaries are going to come on the first day that your primary app has been submitted, so it's important to keep the deadline in mind. Usually secondaries are supposed to be submitted 2 weeks after you've received them, so that's why it's really important to make sure that you know when you've received each secondary for each school. For example, on the first day that your primary app might be submitted, you might receive about 10 secondaries, and then a week later you might receive 5 more. If you haven't finished all 10 secondaries and haven't submitted them before you get that next batch, you might have some difficulty trying to remember which one you need to submit first. So it's important to prioritize and to find tools that you can use to make sure you know when you've received each secondary and list them out in the order of priority for you. So I have a Mac laptop, and with that there's an app called Stickies that I basically use to help organize everything from my day-to-day schedules to tasks that I need to complete. So if you guys look right here, this is what it looks like on my screen. And what I used it for was to basically, one sticky note is to list out the dates that I've received secondaries, and the other sticky note is to list out the dates that I've completed and submitted the secondaries. By using this tool, I'm basically able to just open up my laptop and see what I need to do. If there's a school that's on the received list that's not yet on the completed list, then I know that I need to finish the secondary for that school. And at the same time, I can see when I received it and if there's other schools that I've received after that, so that I can just keep those out of my mind and focus on submitting the ones that are more urgent to complete. And with this tool, I can also add in other priorities that I need to take into account. It's not all about the dates. It's not just once you get a secondary, you have to submit it first before you submit the other ones. You also have to take into account your personal priorities. For example, if you like this school better than the other school, you might want to complete that secondary first before you worry about the other ones, even if the other medical schools secondaries you received beforehand. So this is just a testament to why it's so important to do your research beforehand and to pre-write some of the questions. For example, on my first day after submitting my primary app, I received 10 secondaries that same day. And if I hadn't pre-written or prepared for those secondaries, then I would have had to cram all 10 essays, or not 10 essays, but 10 applications, which could have 3 to 5 essay questions, all into 2 weeks. And that's just overloading like the amount of work that I have to do. So that's why it's better to prepare beforehand. In the case that some of the secondaries that you prepared for and pre-wrote aren't the exact same questions that you actually received in the actual secondary, then it's really important to take the time to read the question or the new question and to fully understand what they're asking for before you start typing it in and submitting it. So this is when organizing your time comes into play. Sometimes you might be busy with all of the other things in your life, so whenever you do receive a secondary, make sure that hopefully the question that you prepared for are the ones that show up there. But if it doesn't, then make sure you put time aside in your daily schedules to basically work on those new secondary questions. And to do this, it's basically all about organizing your time. I use the calendar app so that it's on my phone, it's on my laptop, it's on my iPad. I can always access it and just basically see what my day looks like, and sometimes even what my weekly schedule is like, so that I can put time aside to dedicate it just solely for doing secondaries that I haven't done yet. And sometimes this also means saying no to hanging out with friends or giving up some of your relaxation time just to finish this off. And the last and probably the most important tip that I can give you is to take time and to make sure that you give yourself a break. Applying to medical school is very, very stressful and there's a lot of pressure involved. But in a way, it's technically the first test that you're ever going to take on your path to becoming a physician, because if you can't really handle the stress of applying for medical school, then imagine how much worse it'll get once you are in medical school and there's a lot more pressure involved, a lot more tasks that you have to complete in a way harder difficulty. It'll just be a mess. And if you're kind of struggling or having a hard time with applying for medical school, then it's not a sign that you should give up. It's a sign that you should try to develop some good habits that'll help you de-stress and to take the toll off of your mental and physical health. Because when a lot of these life pressures get involved with academics, it'll be too hard to handle sometimes. So it's up to you to develop some techniques that will better help you stay healthier, both mentally and physically. Some of the de-stressing habits that you could do could be, just laying back, playing games on your phone. You could binge watch some Netflix shows. I like to binge watch Grey's Anatomy. You could also, if you have a pet, you could spend time with your pet, play around with your pet. That's a very de-stressful thing that I really like to do with my new pet bunny. And, just find other passions that you like to do. It doesn't need to be medicine related, but at the same time, just make sure that it really does help de-stress you and it helps you out mentally and physically. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button down below. And again, if you're a college student, pre-med student, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that I can share all of my experiences and tips with you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys on the next one.